Hey, so at this point we're gonna start animating our cat, and you might have seen some of the examples. It's going to be very simple, but at the same time we're going to be wrangling a fair few more keyframes than we did, and layers than we did in our previous workshop. So I think it's a matter of getting your head around working with lots of different layers and lots of different keyframes at the same time, and keyframes on multiple different properties. I think what I'm going to do is start with the speaker and get that going, and then we'll delve into the cat itself. So I might just turn off all of these layers and just leave the speaker there. And I'm going to just play with the scale of the layer. Now, with all of these layers here and twirling down the transformation properties all the time, it can get quite cumbersome, and there's a lot of attention that we're paying to this area of the screen, the whole screen. So a shortcut to kind of keep this a little bit more economical, a couple of shortcuts to access those transformation properties. The letter keys S for scale, P for position, T for opacity, and R for rotation. So that can bring up just those properties. We can work on those properties, and then if you hit that letter again, it takes it away. You can open up more than one property by selecting, for instance, R on the keyboard to open rotation, and then holding Shift down to add scale into the properties there. And then you can take them away by just hitting one of those, the S or the R key on the keyboard. So if you see those properties just opening as I'm working, it's because I'm using those keyboard shortcuts on my keyboard. Okay, so the speaker, we're going to change the scale, and we're going to add some keyframes here. And I'm going to be working in series of 3 keyframes quite often in this demonstration. Kind of like this. I'm going to add one keyframe at the start, then I'm going to add another keyframe, which is eventually going to be the kind of extreme of the animation, and then I'm going to probably return the animation back to its starting point. So for example, all of these keyframes have the scale property set to 100%. But this one in the middle, if I either move to this point here and change this value, or double click on that, I'm going to change that middle one to maybe 120%. Click OK. You can see that value's changed, and that's going to create like a little pulse where our element just grows and then contracts back to its same point. So get used to working in those groups of 3 for this demonstration. Now I wanted to show how keyframes could be manipulated in the timeline. If I wasn't happy with that timing, which I kind of am, I think it's fine, but if I wanted to space that out a bit, I can move keyframes around in the timeline. If I'm not happy with keyframes being on the timeline, I can hit delete and delete a keyframe. And I can also duplicate keyframes, copy and paste them, and I'm going to do that now. I'm going to hit Command C on the keyboard, and then I'm going to move through the timeline, and just at increments of 5 frames, because I've got 5, 5, and then I'm going up to 5 again. I'm going to paste this to create like a little bit of a loop along the timeline. And now you can see it's as if our speaker is kind of pulsing to some kind of invisible beat, and it would be great to add some sound to that beat if you get the opportunity. Probably not going to get around to sound today. So I was hitting spacebar on the keyboard to get that playing, but you've also got your toggle controls up here. Now let's get into animating the cat, and my eye blink there, or Gus's eye blink, is off at the moment, because what we're going to do is we're going to kind of flip the eye open to the eye blink and create a little blink, and it's amazing what a blink will do in terms of bringing a character to life. So maybe that's somewhere for us to start, and it'll allow me to talk about manipulating instances of layers in the timeline. So with the eyes open, somewhere like in the latter part of our 2 seconds, I'm going to create a blink, and it's going to go for 5 frames, I think. I might improvise. So I want my blink, my closed eyes, to stop at some point. So I'm dragging them back to this point here. There is also a keyboard shortcut for that. I think Option square bracket will bring it back to 1 frame away. So that's not perfect, but might be useful if you've got a really complicated timeline. I'm going to go to this particular point, and I'm going to turn my eye blink on. Now, it's not looking right when we're at this point, but at this point, I'll clip this instance so that they more or less swap at this point. And if I play now, our cat's eyes will shut and then reopen again. And I think that's kind of good. They're shutting for a little bit of time. If I wanted it to be shorter, I might have to make it shorter here and then duplicate. I'll do it. I'm going to Command D, duplicate this version of it, and flip it up to this point here and fill in that space on the other side of the blink. So it's a little quicker now. And I think that's good. You can play around with the timing of all of these things. So we've got a blink. Now let's do something simple with the whiskers before we get too carried away. And at about this 1 minute and 5 seconds, I'm going to create with both of these whiskers here on the R, hitting R on the keyboard. I'm going to create a set of keyframes on each layer, like so. And you can see when I've got both layers selected, it'll generate a keyframe in both of those layers. So again, I'm working with sets of 3, but coming back to this point here, I'm going to rotate the whiskers so they come up just a little bit over the eyes. So that's whiskers left, and then I'll select whiskers right, and I'll kind of do it the other way. And if I scrub through there, I've just got just a little kind of tweak in the whiskers, which I think is a cute kind of little cute gesture. So let's play that. Cute little sort of nose wrinkle, and then a blink. So a character's starting to come to life. In the example, there's the cat does a kind of a star jump. So let's work on that, and we really are going to start with the head, because the head's going to carry all of the other parts of the body. And so I'll twirl down the position layer of the head, and I'll create 3 keyframes. And I might make it a little bit longer, so increments of 10 frames, and I'll play it back and see if that's the right kind of timing. At this keyframe here, I'm going to make not left and right, I'm going to make our cat jump up a little bit. Let's bring it down. So jumping that high off the speaker. That will do. Great, so it's going to be kind of doing star jumps to the beat of this music. Well, not strictly to the beat of the music, but you know what I mean. Okay, so that's good. Now, before we go too much further, let's start getting into the habit, and I've already forgotten, of adding easy ease to our keyframes. And that's really kind of easy. We can select keyframes, and right click on the keyframes and go to the keyframe assistant and simply select this option here, Easy Ease. You'll also find it under animation. Keyframe assistant is also here. And that just gives a little bit of softness to the movement. So it just slows down, speeds up just a little bit of an adjustment to the velocity of that movement. We'll look at like more dramatic easing effects as we move along. But you know, as we're getting into it, Easy Ease, it's easy to implement and has a good effect on our outcomes. Now, I'm just going to keep those keyframes open so that I can kind of use them as a marking point for further animation. As the cat is star jumping, I want, and they get to that kind of pinnacle of the jump, I want their arms to kind of spring up. So I'm going to play with the cat's arms a little bit, and that's going to be just with the rotation property. And right at this down here, I'm going to bring the rotation down low so that their arms are kind of more by their waist. And then again, I think I'll add this configuration of sets of 3 keyframes, like so. And right at the top here, we will get the cat's arms going upwards, like so. And very quickly, we'll do the same thing with the cat's left and right leg. Rotation, adding keyframes with them both selected. It'll add keyframes in both layers, which I suppose saves a little bit of time. Just bring that up a little bit so you can see. And it's at this point, at this extremity, where I'll select an individual keyframe and then make a change. So that looks great, nice and funny, and we can see how that works. And while I'm here, I did forget to do this with the arms, but we'll add Easy Ease. And go back, add that again. All right, so looking good. That's pretty much what I wanted to do, but we've got a hat there, so let's add a little bit of movement to the hat. And that's going to be a position change. So I've hit P on the keyboard, and I'm going to just slightly change the timing here to create like a little bit of inertia maybe. So something like this, where the hat will start moving a little bit later, and I could just pick it up and move it above, make it a little bit higher, and then it'll come back and land on the cat's head as the cat lands as well. Yeah, I think that's kind of cute. And we'll add some Easy Ease to that as well. Okay, so I think I'm there with the animation. I'd love to add a couple of little noises, and I think that that's something that you should experiment with. And obviously, we've just, this is a very simple approach. I think that you should be ambitious and try and get some different movement, different combination of movement in your particular expression of this workshop. But for the demonstration, I think that we've done enough. We've looked at, in this last video, we've looked at combining animations on multiple different layers, and seeing how that kind of creates a complex overall animation, i.e. this cat. Let's have a break for a minute and we'll finish off by outputting this very quickly to the media encoder.